Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotarashadha Shri Srimad Bhagavatam Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Ashtotarashadha Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vas Adi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, entitled The Creative Impetus, Chapter 14, The Forest of Enjoyment, Text 4. Would you like to chant Trivata Prabhu?
Yata yanavatsaram krishyamanam apyadagdabijam chaitram punar evavapanakale gulmatana virubhi gavaram eva bhavatyevam eva gṛhastha-āśrama karma chaitram yasmin nahi karman yusidanti yadayam kama kadanda esha avasataha.
Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Every year, the plowman plows over his grain field, completely uprooting all weeds. Nonetheless, the seeds lie there and, not being completely burned, again come up with the plants sown in the field. Even after being plowed under, the weeds come up densely. Similarly, the gṛhastha-āśrama, family life, is a field of fruitive activity. Unless the desire to enjoy family life is completely burned out, it grows up again and again. Even though camphor may be removed from a pot, the pot nonetheless retains the aroma of camphor. As long as the seeds of desire are not destroyed, fruitive activities are not destroyed. Purport. Unless one's desires are completely transferred to the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the desire for family life continues, even after one has taken sannyas. Sometimes in our society, ISKCON, a person out of sentiment may take sannyas, but because his desires are not burned completely, he again takes to family life, even at the risk of losing his prestige and disgracing his good name. These strong desires can be burned out completely when one fully engages in the service of the Lord in devotional service. Oh. Om Jnanativadandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitavachalam Pangam Langai Tegirim Yakipatapaham Vande Shri Gurunditanam Bancha Kapadubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Dhabadamaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Translation again. Every year the plowman plows over his grain field, completely uprooting all weeds. Nonetheless, the seeds lie there, and, not being completely burned, again come up with the plants sown in the field. Even after being plowed under, the weeds come up densely. Similarly, the gṛhastha-āśrama, family life, is a field of fruitive activity. Unless the desire to enjoy family life is completely burned out, it grows up again and again, even though camphor may be removed from a pot. The pot nonetheless retains the aroma of camphor. As long as the seeds of desire are not destroyed, fruitive activities are not destroyed. So the Hare Krishna movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, was established in America, New York City, and it started off as, and continued for quite a while, for the most part as a monastic movement. There were some married devotees, couples, but not that much, actually. The majority, practically the vast majority, were monastic, means monks, brahmacharis, sannyasis, and also, Srila Prabhupada, coming to America, he established what was called the Brahmacharini ashram. The Brahmachari ashram and the Brahmacharini ashram. First ever, yes. Traditionally within India, the women wouldn't live in temples. When Srila Prabhupada came to America, because Prabhupada did things that his godbrothers couldn't understand, or that a lot of people in India couldn't understand. You could say bending certain details or adjusting certain details of culture to facilitate the preaching movement. And one of those being, when he came to America, he saw that there was a lot of not just boys interested in the chanting Hare Krishna and living in the temple, but girls also. And seeing that it'd be better for them to live in the temples than at their homes, because they weren't getting proper training at their homes, he established the Brahmacharini ashram. One of the things his godbrothers didn't like. A few other things he did also, but so largely ISKCON consisted of young men and young women, unmarried, preaching the gospel of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu all over America and all over the world. And gradually, some of the devotees, they started to get married. And then gradually more and more and more. And to the point where when this started happening, devotees didn't know what to think about it. Because to join the Hare Krishna movement means to join a temple. It means to join the temple. That's what it means to be a Hare Krishna at a particular point in the beginning in America. So when devotees started leaving and getting married, the temple devotees, they didn't know what to think of these people. Like, oh, they fell down, or they're in Maya, right? They're not devotees anymore, even. How can you be a devotee if you're not living in a temple, right? So they had all these different thoughts. So yeah, it continued like that to the point where the vast majority of members of ISKCON were not brahmacharis or brahmacharinis or sannyasis. And up until the point of the present day where the vast majority still are not brahmacharis, sannyasis, brahmacharinis. It's a very few, actually, in comparison to all the devotees all over the world. Gṛhastha-āśrama being the most popular one. Popular out of the ashrams. So now we're at this particular situation in the society, this particular stage. And Srila Prabhupada, although he knew people were going to get married, he knew some of the brahmacharis were going to get married, or he knew a lot of them were going to. And still, he made an interesting comment. He said that, talking to all the brahmacharis, one time he said that all the brahmacharis, they should remain brahmacharis. They should remain monks, right, in the ashram. And he said, all the women, they should be married. And then they asked Prabhupada, well, how do we do that, Prabhupada? How do we figure that out? And he said, that's for you to decide, management to decide how to figure that one out. So the brahmachari ashram, and here it's mentioned the sannyas ashram, but we'll start discussing the brahmachari, a little bit of brahmachari ashram. It's brahmachari ashram's not just for young boys, but brahmachari ashram one could stay throughout their life. And actually, there's Vedic injunctions to say that's actually the best. Means the best over gṛhastha-āśrama, vanaprastha-āśrama, and sannyasa-āśrama. It's better. Because of the simplicity of it. The brahmachari does not have to deal with the fanfare, if you want to call it that the sannyasis have to deal with, or the lot of respect, adoration, and all that, and a flood of different inquiries, right, and so many other things. And nor does the brahmachari have to deal with the different pressures of household life, different, could say, entanglements or responsibilities, or yeah. So the brahmachari life is very simple. Just like Prabhupada said, brahmachari life means you need 6 feet to lay your body, or so. If you're a little taller, you need a little more, but 6, we don't have that problem here, right? 6 feet to lay your body. You need a little prasadam and service, and you're happy. Brahmachari is happy. Should be happy. And if one's not feeling happy in the brahmachari ashram, then they should learn to feel happy in the brahmachari ashram. Because someone may say, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to be a brahmachari. I don't know if I could do it, Like we were discussing some classes ago, there's one brahmachari in the ashram here, and he said he'll vow till he's 32 or 33, whatever it is. He's like 27 now, something like that, to be in the ashram, and then he'll decide whether he wants to go this way or that way, or which way he wants to go. But whether one's in the brahmachari ashram for 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, 16 years, 60 years, whatever it is, as a matter of principle, they should learn how to be happy in the brahmachari ashram as far as possible. Simple means happy with simplicity of the brahmachari ashram. Because good brahmachari makes a good grihastha, makes a good sannyasi. Bad brahmachari makes a bad grihastha, a bad sannyasi. And that's not good, especially, of course, we don't want a bunch of bad grihasthas, but especially bad sannyasis, right? Very not good at all. And as Vamanadev said to Bali Maharaj, because Bali Maharaj asked Vamanadev, how many steps of land do you want? Or what do you want, right? Or how many? And I said, I just want 3 steps. And then Bali Maharaj said, oh, I could give you land, planets. He was a proprietor of the universe. I could give you so many things. But Bali Maharaj said, I just want 3 steps of land. Because, why is that? Why is that? Why did he just want 3 steps? Because he said that if I do not learn how to become happy with just these 3 steps, then I won't be happy with the whole universe. In other words, sometimes people think that, oh, I need so much to be happy. I need perfect situation. I need a perfect this, perfect that, perfect so many things to be happy. But that's not the case. That's not the case. That shouldn't be the case, that we need a lot to be happy. Perfect arrangements which don't exist in the material world, even in the Hare Krishna movement. You'll find something that will not be to your liking wherever you go. Or you'll find somebody. It might be perfect situation, but there'll be somebody who's not to your liking to a degree, right? So to learn how to be happy with the simplicity of brahmachari life it's important, or the simplicity of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada said, simple living, high thinking. So grihasthas should also be simple. Sannyasis should be simple. All devotees should be simple in the sense of happy with simple arrangements, just happy serving Krishna. Here it's mentioning that in the purport in the verse that if the desires for sense gratification for fruitive activity aren't burned up, the seeds aren't burned up, then people will go back to it. And Prabhupada says even in our society, ISKCON, people sometimes, Prabhupada's commenting here, they take sannyas out of sentiment, and because the desires for fruitive activities, the seeds aren't burned in their hearts, they go back to family life or fruitive activity. And in the verse is saying that until these seeds are burned, one will have to go back. One will go back, have a tendency and will go back. So what does that mean? Does that mean we have to burn out all our material desires and then take to the process of Krishna consciousness. Hey, I haven't burned out I got a lot of desires to fulfill. Actually, I have unlimited stock. Does that mean that we're all supposed to act on our unlimited stock of material desires? Because material desires by nature keep on expanding if they're not controlled, and first they have to be controlled and then completely destroyed. But if they're not controlled, they just keep on expanding, like I don't know, like something that expands. Fire, yes, exactly. There you go. Thank you. Like fire. Keep on putting fuel, it just keeps on getting bigger. So we should understand first, theoretically, that material desires will never be fulfilled. They'll never be fulfilled. In other words, you could have a big long list of material desires. All right, check that one off, check that one off, check that one off, check that. But then there'll be another list, and then another list, and another list. It just keeps on. Like everybody here, I suspect, I don't know about everybody, but I know at least some of you or some of us have to-do lists, right? Means you have a daily to-do list. I have to do this today. Or you have a weekly list. I have to do this in the next week or the next month. And we keep on making these lists over and over and over and over and over again, right? Because there's always things to do, things to accomplish. So material desires are like that. Check them off, check them off, check them off, check them off. But hey, here you go. There's some more material desires. So a devotee, understanding this point of not that we have to burn out our material desires through engaging them, but through purifying them, through sublimating them or engaging our senses in the service of Krishna and becoming purified to the point where we don't want anything material. We don't have a list of material desires to fulfill anymore. We've just taken that list and just crumpled it up and throw it in the trash can, throw it in the fire, right? We threw it in the fire. And that's what it means to be a sannyasi, to take all the material desires, first control them, first and foremost to control, but then to take them and just throw it in the fire. It means I don't want anything to do with them. And then someone would say, all right, great, sounds good, because I'm not taking sannyas, so that means I could keep on making lists of material desires and checking them off. Well, Srila Prabhupada said that even if everyone doesn't take sannyas, which just statistically speaking, most devotees won't. That's what we've seen over the last 50 years, and that's what we're seeing right now. And it seems like that will be the case, that a majority will be gṛhasthas or in the vanaprastha-āśrama, moving towards that, and a lot won't take sannyas. Some will, though. But even if we don't formally, Prabhupada said many times, like he was writing to one of his devotees in the gṛhastha-āśrama, and he said, you're better than a sannyasi because you're fully engaged in your senses in the service of Krishna. So, and Srila Prabhupada would make the point that everyone should be a sannyasi internally. Means, what does it mean to be a sannyasi? To dedicate our body, our mind, our words in the service of Krishna, in the service of the spiritual master. So that's actually meant for everybody. We're all supposed to do that. It's not like, all right, hey, well, he's a sannyasi, so I'll let him engage his body and his mind and his words in the service of Krishna and the spiritual master. And I'll engage my body, my words, and my body, my words, my mind sometimes, if I feel like it, or never, or when I'm old, right? That's a big misconception. People think, yeah, when I get old, then I'll start being serious about Krishna consciousness. You hear that a lot. But then, they're just cheating themselves. And then you see these people who say that, and then when they get old, they just continue the same. They can't. Because they don't have desire, because they're not serious, unfortunately, hopefully they become serious and hopefully they wake up this way or that way. But they have such excuses like that. Oh, I'll be serious in the future, right? And then they're not serious throughout their life. And then when they become old, they don't have the ability to be serious. They keep on going to the casinos, right? They keep on doing what they're doing. All types of non-Krishna conscious stuff. So we shouldn't think that, yes, I'll take sannyas in the future, or like formally, or I'll take sannyas informally in the future. I'll dedicate my mind, body, and words informally in the future. But we should try for it now. Means informally. And that's what Rishabhadev is saying. This whole series of pastimes we've been reading have started with Rishabhadev, because Bharat Maharaj is the son of Rishabhadev. So, Nayam Deha, Deham Bhajam Niloke Kashtan Karman Arhate Vid Bhujame Tapo Divyam Putra Kayena Sudibrahmasakyam Twanantam. That the human form of life is meant for Tapo Divyam, divine austerity. To not migrate like a migrate? What do bears do? They don't hibernate. Yes, I was close. Migrate. Hibernate. To not hibernate like a bear. Yes, this is so much pleasure. I'm sleeping now. Like Prabhupada said, especially on the weekends, people do that. They sleep. I don't know. Prabhupada said, like, what do you say, 22 hours or something like that. To sleep a long time, that shouldn't be considered. That's not the business of human life. Tapo divyam. If we have 100 years, right, sleeping 12 hours a day and have 100 years, that's 50 years of sleep. No material progress or spiritual progress is made sleeping. So, but tapo divyam, to rise early, as early as possible, to attend, to have some Mangalarti in the temple. Srila Prabhupada established 4:30 a.m. The bells should be ringing and singing. And if one's not near a temple, they could rise early at their home. They should rise early at their home, because some people say, "Oh, I don't have time to chant Hare Krishna or do other things before I go to work." So we would say that, okay, go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier, and then you'll definitely have time in the morning before the day completely gets rolling, to engage in the most important thing, sadhana, spiritual practices in the morning. So that is human tapo divyam, to engage in this divine austerity. To not to eat anything and everything, right? Like they have all these places all over the world, but even here in San Diego, these weird places, people eat all types of weird things. I don't know if you, anyways, buffalo burgers, ostrich burgers, what else? Weird stuff. Eel burgers, alligator burgers, right here in San Diego. It's called Crazy Burger. That's what the place is called. Anyways, but eat all this weird stuff. It's human life there's patram pushpam palam toyam, Krishna says, right? If one offers me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower, vegetables, right, I will accept it. offered with love and devotion. So we should eat that which is offerable to Krishna. And aside from eating that which is offerable to Krishna, we should offer to Krishna also. Take prasadam. This is, although it's simple, but it's austerity, tapo divyam. And also one should not just engage in sense gratification like the lower species do, eating, sleeping, mating, defending, but should engage in this divine austerity by which it will purify their consciousness. And upon the consciousness being purified, they'll experience Brahma Saukhyam Tvanantam, unlimited happiness in relation to Krishna. So yeah, we're not into this idea that, oh, you just have to burn out your senses and then you'll become detached. We don't agree with that philosophy. That was mentioned to Prabhupada one time, this philosophy, by some bogus guru or swami or teacher. He said that, well, you just have to burn out your senses, just like your senses have urges and just engage them, right? Just keep on writing out the material desire list and checking them off, fulfilling them, and then just keep on going like that, right? And then eventually you become burned out, and then you become detached. And then Prabhupada said, oh, well, that means the pig is the greatest sannyasi, because the pig's just... So this particular person, he had a ashram. He had this particular guru had an ashram in Pune, and Srila Prabhupada had many pious Indian ladies coming to him, Srila Prabhupada, coming to Prabhupada, and complaining to Srila Prabhupada, and saying that our husbands are going to this ashram and practicing whatever. Yeah, this philosophy, just in other words, just being licentious, gross, so-called good, so-called husbands, right? And these ladies were complaining to Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada said, oh, don't worry, he told the ladies, don't worry, I will go to Pune personally, I will drive this person out. That's what he said. Interesting statement from Prabhupada. He said he would go there personally and drive him out. So as time passed, Srila Prabhupada was traveling the world, and he didn't make it to Pune to deal with this person and drive him out, and then eventually Srila Prabhupada left, 1977, and then sometime later devotees went to Pune, and they were preaching there, and that person was still there with his ashram, sense gratification. Anyways, so he was there, and the devotees were going back and forth. There's the ISKCON devotees, and then there's this person. They're going back and forth. Means a news reporter was going back and forth, asking this guru, so-called guru, oh, what do you think about the Hare Krishnas, right, being here in Pune? And he was criticizing them, also criticizing Prabhupada. And then the Pune devotees, devotees, a little sharp too, so they're going back and forth. News reporters like a good story, so like to, rile people up, right? So eventually, specifically after this person started criticizing Prabhupada heavily, very shortly after that, he got this severe disease. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but it was a disease which his body just became intolerably painful, like rash all over his body, itching, and he became so diseased and painful he just left Pune. So it was interesting because Prabhupada said that I'll go there and I'll drive him out, and we could see from the philosophy of the Bhagavatam that we criticize devotees, we offend devotees, right? And it says that our life longevity of our life, and so many things are reduced, right? All good things, auspiciousness is reduced. Just like Prabhupada visited that Dr. R.K., right? Dr. Radhakrishna. And at a particular point, I think he had a stroke, he couldn't speak. Srila Prabhupada talks about in Shamasundar talks about in his book, Chasing Rhinos. But he was a big, impersonalist, Mayavadi, and Prabhupada said, oh, well, Krishna, took away his speaking. So, anyways, but this personality in Pune, he left, and this way Srila Prabhupada drove him out, right? So, but the main thing is, we don't agree with this philosophy. And devotees shouldn't think that, oh, I have like a bunch of desires to fulfill, and then I'll come back to Krishna. Now, of course, there is some concession if we're talking about brahmacharis and marriage and this and that. There is some concession if somebody has desires to engage in family life, then they should do that religiously under the sanction and blessings of their spiritual master and so on. But in a religious way, a Krishna conscious way, not forgetting tapo divyam, not forgetting divine austerity. And it is possible that one could skip that altogether. One doesn't have to. If one's desires becomes like there was an anyways, there's one brahmachari in Los Angeles. He's still there, actually. He's been there for many, many years. Maybe you don't know him because he's so quiet and kind of in the background. But anyways, at one particular point, he was thinking about getting married. He's thinking, okay, I have desires, and I'm just gonna get married. So he went through the whole. He almost went through the whole thing. He put on white, and there was a girl arranged, and going to go through the whole thing. And then he had some brahmacharis kind of talk to him like, hey, Prabhu, are you really sure you want to do this? And like, because we know you, and it doesn't seem like it's really going to work for you, and you're going to be happy. Are you sure? And so then he started thinking about it. He was like, hey, they're making sense. And eventually he just changed his mind and his cloth. Changed it back to saffron. He's still there as a brahmachari and very happy. So anyways, so that may be acceptable. But for somebody especially, Srila Prabhupada's mentioned here, somebody who takes sannyas, they can't change back. Of course they can, but it's not acceptable. And Srila Prabhupada says, even though it's not acceptable, he says here, out of sentiment, this takes sannyas, but because the desires are not burned completely, he again takes to family life, even at the risk of losing his prestige and disgracing his good name. So the desires are so strong that they think, okay, let me go back. So it should be a lesson for all of us that again, whether we formally accept sannyas or whether we're at stage, grihastha should also be a vanaprastha, but to go back into that kind of family life or the old ways, right? Many devotees have done that. But it should be a lesson to us that the desires of our minds are very strong, and they have to be controlled, and they have to be transcended. And through good association, through spiritual practices, through service. And we shouldn't think ourselves liberated. Like there was one Christian priest, and he was glorified over and over and over and over again, and right, because he was advanced actually. And he was on his deathbed, and he was saying that, and they were glorifying him, and you're so great, this and that. And he said, "Hey, I haven't made it yet. Just once I've made it, then you could, then maybe you could glorify me. But in other words, he was saying, even on my last, even at the last moment, I could, my consciousness could go the other direction, means away from God, away from Krishna. So he wasn't feeling himself liberated until that, right? And we've crossed the line. So that's a good, it's a good principle to follow. Like Prabhupada said, I mean, he said a number of times to a number of devotees, but Prabhupada was he had a big radio show program, a lot of people listening, and devotees were glorifying Prabhupada. And somehow Prabhupada said that, yes, every night I pray to Krishna to please protect me from Maya. So Prabhupada was praying all the time to protect, to be protected from the illusory energy. So we should also pray because, I mean, you have the prime example here. Of course, you could have the example of modern day devotees, but you could have the prime examples here of Bharat Maharaj. I mean, he left. He was a young man also, but he left his kingdom and everything, and then he went to the forest, and he was on a very high level, bhava, and he became attracted to a young, means to take care of a deer, and he became bewildered, even after being on such a high level. And devotees have brought up that one of the reasons he became bewildered, because he was by himself. He didn't have other association of devotees so much, actually. Practically, he was by himself. Because if he had the association of the devotees, they would have said, hey, Prabhu, I think you're kind of getting a little, get a little bit carried away here, Prabhu, like, And then under peer pressure, social pressure, most likely he would have said, yeah, you know what, you're right. Actually, you're right. Or they would have said, hey, Prabhu, we're going to take this deer to the local, somewhere else. We're taking this deer with, we're taking ashram next door, so you're getting a little. But he didn't have any association. So, anyways, of course, it's an example of, he's given it as an example, but so you have to be careful. And there's so many stories like that of you have these, thinking of the Christian world, but thinking of two different examples that these personalities were monks and advanced, this and that, and some issues, some problems. So we have to be careful. And try to burn it. Just try to burn that seed, right? We're chanting Hare Krishna, burning the seed. We're engaged in devotional service, burning the seed. It can be burned, and that's what we're trying to do. So, does anybody have any quick?
Balaram Prabhu?
He should wait till he's called.
Yeah, we just have. I think we have a comment or question here, Vijay, and then.
Yes, I can wait. No problem.
Yes, Jeff.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So until we burn the seeds of material desire, then the list keeps going. The list keeps expanding. So can it be assumed at some point it takes many births that the material desires or the seeds are burned completely? But can they be burned in one lifetime, or do we assume that you have to keep moving through the cosmic samsara, and eventually one day they're all burned?
Yeah. Oh, they could definitely be burned in one lifetime. They can definitely be burned. And we may have a list of material desires, right? But we could reduce that list, right? We reduce it. Reduce. Just like someone may say, like on their list or something, I wanna, like they have this thing in San Diego or in other cities, I'm sure, but very weird. But I think they have like restaurant week or something where, and I don't know what that exactly means. I never got into that, but I think it's like people, they go around and they try out all the different restaurants for like a month or something to kind of. So, I mean, that may be on somebody's, I mean, it may be restaurant week, it may not be restaurant week, but that may be on somebody's, list. Yeah, I want to try this one, this one, this one, this one. I mean, people, they have desires like that, So, let's say that is the case. Then you say, well, through realization and through practice of Krishna consciousness, we could say, no, I'm not. I may have had that list in the past, but no, I'm taking that, I'm crumpling it up and I'm throwing that one away. Or, I don't know, somebody, they have, I want to go to,
National parks in America.
yeah, I want to go to all the national parks in America, or I want to
Come back as a bear.
come back as a bear, yeah. Yeah. Nice scenery, right? As a bear. But so anyway, so many things. There's a different lists, right? So through the practice of Krishna consciousness, then people can become free from that gradually, and maybe sometimes in a fast way. And that's the experience of devotees, right? They come to Krishna consciousness, and maybe when they join, they had a whole list. Yeah, I want to go skydiving in France, and I want to go see what's his name? Ringo. I want to go see Ringo in London as one of his last shows, and there's all these kind of lists. But then they start practicing. It's like, well, I don't want to go skydiving in France. I don't want to go see Ringo. I could care less about going to see Ringo, or what. And it's kind of silly examples, but people have so many things, right? So reduce, and then there may be other ones that may be more difficult, right? Kind of more difficult to give up, but gradually the idea is just to reduce and then just completely purify, just to be free. But it can be in one life through the practice of Krishna consciousness associating with devotees. Tivrena bhakti yogena akamo sarvakamo va moksha kamo dadadi tivrena bhakti yogena yajete purusham param. That akama sarva kamo va. So akama means no material desires. Sarva kama, all material desires, or moksha kama, desire and liberation. Whoever they are, it says they should have given tivrena bhakti yoga, intense devotional service to Krishna. So that intensity will help purify quicker. Just like washing pots, right? Every temple in the world, we know for a fact, has pots to wash, right? Because every temple is distributing prasadam, which means there's pots to wash. So pots get dirty. Sometimes they get really dirty. They get burned up, or inside the pot, or there's some dull particles or whatever it is, right? So you could go back there. There's a big mountain of pot, or there's a normal size pile of pots, and you could go back there and just kind of take your time, and maybe it'll take you like 5 days to finish, right? Just kind of slowly, and not so much pressure. Or sometimes people wash pots, they don't do a good job or something, because you really got to scrub in order to get everything off. Like Prabhupada, Yamuna Devi kept on sending her back, get the black off the pot, right? So the amount of intensity it's done, it will become cleaner, faster, and also just cleaner in general. So if we're able to increase the intensity more and more and more, then it becomes more clean quicker. So, yeah. Or increase the fire. Yeah. All right, any other? Okay. Comment?
Just you were saying that people say, well, I'll become Krishna conscious, I'll take a spiritual life when I'm old. I saw someone say that to Prabhupada. Anyone know what Prabhupada's answer was? Well, when's old age? How do you define old age? Old age means just before death. Prabhupada said, do you know when you're going to die? You may be older than me. And another time a man said, well, sooner or later I'll take up spiritual life. Prabhupada said, better sooner. Do you know you have a later? Just thought I'd talk.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Govardhan Das.
Thank you, Bono.
Thank you.
You know, before I became a devotee, what was really popular was Korean barbecue. Korean barbecue. And I have no idea. But one of the menus, or one of the, what was on the menu was a cow tongue and intestines. And I remember I'm sorry, Hare Krishna. I remember one of my friends, he ordered the intestine. Sorry, Hare Krishna. He cut it open and all the bile just spilled out.
Yeah. Yeah, and somehow or other they think that's like, I don't know. Yeah. Like Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he sent devotees to preach in Burma. And I guess it's Bhagavatam class, and you mentioned this, so I could mention this. I mentioned it one time in the Krishna Lounge years ago, what I'm about to mention. And anyways, I'll tell you the reaction I got after I tell this. But so in Burma, people, they just let all types of roadkill and different, means animals that get run over, this and that. And they just collect them all, let them decompose, and then they make like a special, yeah, put them in a pot, lead them up, and they make a special sauce, right? Anyways, it's disgusting. But so when the devotees went there in Burma, they were cooking, devotees are cooking, making prasadam, right? So and they're frying puris. You got a big wok full of ghee, right? And they're frying puris, which is a great art, actually, right? You got to make them puff up. You got to make sure that they're cooked thoroughly, no raw dough. But it's nice. Prabhupada, when talking to Kurma, because Prabhupada had his cooking, and Prabhupada didn't know exactly who cooked, so he said Prabhupada had a puri. It was nicely puffed up and everything. And Prabhupada said, "Oh, who made this puri?" And they said, "Oh, Kurma." And he said, "Oh, I could understand by seeing this puri that he's practicing Krishna consciousness very nicely." Anyways, but they're making puris, and the ghee was, you have a vent, pulling the air out, and ghee was the smell of puris frying in ghee was permeating the whatever complex. And then the neighbors were like, the neighbors who had this, special sauce, they were going, "Oh, disgusting! That's just the ghee smell. That's just terrible." So it's interesting. They thought this was, the disgusting stuff was great, and the ghee was terrible, right? So the modes of material nature, right? Goodness, passion, ignorance. So, anyways, I told this in the lounge one time, and this was years ago. And when I told it, and some lady in the audience, when I told her that, the whole story, she right in the middle of the class, it's actually kind of rude, and I thought, and I was my mind was a little irritated with her, actually, but she said, I was telling the story, and she said, "Oh," like loud. She said, "Oh, that's disgusting," right in the middle of when I was telling this story, I was like, okay, and, everybody kind of, it's true, it is disgusting, but, yes.
Having been to Burma many times,
Yes.
a number of times,
Having been to Burma a number of times, I can certify that this is a fact.
Yes.
And when they take the lid off that pot, I was in Michikina, which is up in the east, and they took the whole block smelled unbelievable.
Mm.
So it's a fact. And also, he's moved. Little Mikey, who used to live next door to me, he came over one day and said, "I can't take it anymore." And because it's a small apartment. When he's sizzling up his steak or whatever, and onions, or liver and onions, it blows into my, you have to shut the door, light some incense, right? He came over one day, he said, I can't take it anymore. What is that you're cooking? That it has that milky smell. And you know, you take a little ghee and you put some spice and you saute your vegetables or whatever, make a chance. That's what he was smelling.
Yeah.
So it's certified. I just wanted to
Yeah.
on your point.
Yeah, so. But through prasadam distribution, people's desires can change. The desires can change for that type of stuff to prasadam, that's what Srila Prabhupada's idea was. Very great idea, to open restaurants and change people's tastes through prasadam, transfer 'em. Like in Houston, Tamal Krishna Goswami was pushing the devotees for years to open a restaurant, for many, many years. Actually, if you listen to the classes right before, like his last classes, his last visit to Houston, before he left, they're actually very enlightening classes, wonderful classes, right before he, left the world. But he was being really strong with the devotees, and he had a house program, and there was a number of Indians there, and a number of them were initiated by him, and he was chiding them heavily. He was saying, he said, I'm not happy. He said, where are the Americans? Where are the Hispanics? Where are the, he said, you have to open this restaurant, and anyways, he was going on and on. So eventually, happily, they've opened that restaurant. And I was there years ago in Houston, and I saw, a bunch of Americans going there, So it was nice to see that. And also one more last thing about restaurant. There was a person, a young man, and he would always go to the Tucson restaurant to take prasadam, and he really liked it. And the devotee said he was like a cow, like grazing there like all day long practically. Just like kind of hanging out, and he was paying, but he's taking prasadam. But he wasn't showing much interest in the philosophy, this and that. But then gradually he started to show more and more interest and more. And then he started to practice and became a devotee. And he's a brahmachari now. And he's been a brahmachari for 20 years at least. And distributing Prabhupada's books, a lot of them. Parameshvara Prabhu. Yeah, that's what devotees told me. Yeah, bunch of books. You had something, Javita Prabhu? Yeah, we got our truck out here parked, so it's opening at 11. Bring your wallets or credit cards or whatever. Okay. Javita Prabhu? Oh, I thought you. Oh.
Said that wet cauliflower vegetable and paneer will defeat lobster soup.
Wet cauliflower and paneer.
Wet cauliflower
Veg and paneer will defeat
defeat lobster soup.
defeat lobster soup. Apparently, Prabhupada also, I don't think devotees are terming this now, but I don't know what it was paneer, this and that, but I don't know, we have to look up in a letter or something, but Prabhupada called it the meat eater's delight. Interesting. But yeah, we'll transform people, so all glories to food prasadam truck here, so. All right. Yes. Oh, yes. Vijay, Krishna.
Yes, I'm here, Balaram Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Sure.
My question is related to the purpose, where it is mentioned about losing my prestige and disgracing my good name.
Yes.
Isn't that the process of Bhakti Yoga? Isn't that it is meant for us to detach ourselves from worship, recognition, and fame? Actually, the most advanced devotees advertise themselves as no better than worms in stool. Does this mean that they are risking losing their prestige and disgracing their good names? That is my question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted sannyas one of the reasons being is because he saw that people weren't offering him respect. Actually, they're offending him. And he took sannyasa as a preaching platform, because especially back then, people, and even nowadays, people accept sannyasis. They'll hear what they have to say. Where that wasn't happening. Not always, but yeah, definitely not always, but... So in other words, to have a good name, to have some respect or whatever it may be, not for one's own sense gratification, but for the purpose of preaching, is sometimes necessary or sometimes accepted. So you say that, okay, well, if a person's a sannyasi, and then they say, okay, well, they go back to family life, and then he's risking disgracing his good name and prestige. Practically, this is referring to, because ultimately, everything that a devotee should do should be for the pleasure of their spiritual master. So this could be boiled down to, okay, just for sense gratification, just to fulfill material desires, I'm going back to what I shouldn't go back to. And I'm risking, you could say, my prestige and good name just for sense gratification. But that's not a good policy, because it's displeasing to the spiritual master. But does anybody else have anything want to say about that? Because I don't think I satisfied him or myself.
Well, the thing is that the prestige, the good name, as you pointed out, the point is that facilitates the preaching.
Yeah.
It's not that you're enjoying, you're not enjoying getting all the honor and everything, but it gives you credibility.
Yes.
In other words, he's a sannyasi and he's strict and he shows renunciation.
Yeah.
Because that, detachment is something that really impresses people to hear, because they're very attached.
Yeah.
In other words, they can see this person is blissful in Krishna consciousness, and he's not doing all the stuff that I'm doing, trying to be happy.
Yeah.
So that in itself brings credibility, and then you can preach. But if you lose that, then you lose your preaching platform. In other words, you're not as potent a preacher.
Yeah.
You can't help people as much.
Prabhupada said good reputation is all the sannyasi has.
Vajrayana Swami said, good reputation is all sannyasi has. So, all right. Okay. Gruntraj. All right, Vijay Krishna, hope that...
No, Prabhu, both answers, yours and Dravida Prabhu's answers, were outstanding. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Gruntraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.